Good afternoon and welcome everybody. This is Blair Marvin. I'm the Vice President of the Augusta Metro Chamber of Commerce. We appreciate you taking some time out of your day to be with us. Hopefully you've been following our Achieve More Together Today series, which is a combination of social posts and daily newsletters, as well as webinars on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 3. This is our second one. Hopefully you were a part of our first one, learning how to lead and manage a remote workforce. But if you missed it, we do have it online and it was emailed out, a recording of that. So we are pleased to be entering the second part of this weekly series. Again, just hoping to keep you all informed and educated, engaged, connecting in just a different way. And so we're glad that you are here joining with us today. Thank you to Andrea Usry and Regina Alexander of SME CPAs who are bringing our presentation today on tax relief opportunities for mandated employee paid leave. Thank you all. We do have the option to ask questions. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see the questions tab and you can ask your question that way. We will be filtering them over to SME CPAs so that they can field those questions at the end. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Andrea and Regina.
Thank you, Blair. I'm Andrea Usry. I'm a tax partner here at SME, and this is Regina Alexander. She's our firm administrator. Typically, we like to be in the back, behind the scenes, trying to take care of taxes and whatever, but we very much appreciate the opportunity today to be with you and try to address some of the issues that I'm sure all of you are concerned about in lieu of what's been going on in our last few weeks. One of the things we want to talk about today is one of the acts that was just recently passed this past week. And I just want to start off by saying, first of all, that this act is not for people, for employers that are dealing with having to close their business due to lack of business. And you'll see that as we get into it further. Regina and I have gone through countless pages, and you'll see there's, if you see me gathering other pages while we're going through our presentation, you'll understand why. It's been changing, pretty much evolving every day. And so I've had to, even since we did our presentation earlier today, I went at 1 o'clock and looked online at the Department of Labor's website, and something had changed. So it's actually was a little bit different than what we had originally planned. So we've just made some notes, and we're going to share that with you. And of course, the main thing we would say is that, you know, be in touch with your accountant. If you need guidance, we're certainly here to help. We'll be glad to help you, but we do understand the concerns. It's very confusing. We have questions ourselves. We've been fielding calls from clients this past week trying to figure out what's the best way to do? What do I need to do next? What I need to be doing? The main thing is just be cognizant of all the changes. As I said, it's ever evolving, and we're trying to make those changes and keep you updated as well on our website. I'm just going to let us start. First of all, you know, basically this whole act was something so that employees would have to choose between missing a paycheck or dealing with the health issues from the coronavirus, right?
Correct.
And so I thought I'd let you start. Regina's going to start, and you'll have to bear with us because some of this stuff is so technical. You know, I would love to be able just to go through it and talk about it, but the main thing, some of this we're just going to have to read verbatim, and then we can discuss it more as we go through. And everybody's situation could potentially be different. So I know it's a lot to take in to start with, but hopefully we can do a summary at the end and maybe answer some questions and help you.
Okay, we're going to talk about the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. And going forward in this presentation, we're going to call it the Family First Act because that's a mouthful to say the true name of the act. And this act goes into effect on April the 1st. So for any of your situations that you're asking questions about that's happening this week, this does not go into effect until next week, April the 1st. So I'll make sure everyone understands that. For our presentation, we used two references. The two sources we went to was the U.S. Department of Labor's website and also the IRS's website. And we put those links for the reference materials we used at the end of this presentation. So hopefully you'll be able to go to that source like we did. And also, like Andrea said, we also had another piece of documentation came out today. which I want to make sure all of you are aware of. It is the employee rights poster that you need to post. This is a very good document, and it basically summarizes everything that we've been trying to do for the last week and a half.
They've just put it out today, actually. Literally at 1 o'clock, I found this, and I thought, well, this is perfect. This is what we needed all along.
So go get this, because that will help you. I'm going to refer to this in a couple of my slides, just because I want to make sure I'm reading from the most current information. But the first thing that we're going to cover is we're going to cover the covered employers. And the main thing that you guys need to know is if you're a private employer and you have less than 500 employees, you're a covered employer. There are also certain government employers that are not covered, and there's different exceptions, and they're kind of detailed at the bottom. But that's the main thing that you guys need to know is if you have less than 500 employees and you are a private employer, you are covered. Now, there is some small business protection, and there is an exemption for this. For small businesses that have less than 50 employees, you may qualify for an exemption. The requirement, if this following this act jeopardize your business or jeopardize you being a going concern. And also to elect this, we do not know how you're going to make this election, but just make sure that you are documenting, if you have a business with less than 50 employees, why you think you are exempt, and to make sure that you're documenting it. And it says in this presentation, and I grabbed this directly off the U.S. Department of Labor's website, is that the details are forthcoming. So basically, we need, that there's an exemption for this,
Right.
and they're going to give you the details later.
And one of the things too I saw was that you're not going to be submitting information to the DOL. They do not want you to send any information to the DOL relating to that. So I just think now as you look at your situation, mark dates as to when maybe, someone was out for one of the particular reasons that we're talking about. Just make sure you're making, notes and keeping track of who's working what hours and why they're at home and things like that. So, and it'll make more sense as we go along.
And then our next slide, we're talking about which employees are covered. Under this, all employees are covered. And if you, it's full-time, part-time, and temporary workers are covered, and independent contractors are not. And there is the U.S. Department of Labor, they have a frequently asked question link that we put at the end, and they will give you more details on this, on how you're determining whether these temporary workers, I know some of you have some joint ventures that you have to, but again, those are very detailed questions that we're not going to be able to answer, but please go to the U.S. Department of Labor.
Yeah, it's just a case-by-case basis because, as I said, there's a lot you've got to look at as far as, how many hours have they worked? Were they part-time? Were they, suppose they only work, they never work the same amount of hours every week. There's a look-back period that you'll have to calculate, but it does guide you through that. And we do expect more guidance on that to come in the next few days as well.
And also for your employees, they are guaranteed 2 weeks up to 80 hours of the paid sick leave. And this is at the regular rate of pay, but it is capped at $511 per day and $5,110 for the full aggregate for the 10 days. And this is the reasons are the employees are quarantined under the advice of a health provider, and they're listed on this spreadsheet. But we're gonna go back to this because this is what I'm gonna refer back to give you the 6 reasons. And then and basically I'm thinking how in my head I had to break this out is the reasons that they're giving you, if it's employee related, if the employee's sick, they're the ones that are quarantined, they're going to get the regular pay at the full part.
Right.
If it's related to caring for someone else or for child care, that's when the 2/3 kicks in.
Right, and you'll see more about that. And that's probably one of the issues we'll see more of here in our area, right. Just because fortunately we haven't had as many cases as some areas, and the majority of the reason some of the employees are staying home is because the schools are out. And we just heard today that they're going to now be closed until April the 24th here in Georgia. So this could go on for a while, and it very well could impact your business and some of your employees who have to stay home that don't have child care.
Correct. And part of this act also is the paid expanded medical leave. And this is basically just an expansion of our old FMLA. And this is for employees that have been their employees for at least 30 days. And for this, the only reason you can get this expanded is for childcare. So if your childcare, your school is closed, your childcare provider is closed, this is when you would go into this expansion. They'll give you an extra 10 weeks.
Yeah, in addition to the sick leave that you get. So you're looking at 12 weeks out that potentially you could pay them and for this particular leave.
And the way I understand it works is the intention is that the employees would get the first 2 weeks at the paid leave, paid sick leave, and then the additional 10 weeks would kick in for the child care
Right.
for a full 12. And now we're going to talk about the qualifying reasons for leave. And with these bullet points, we took directly from the Department of Labor, but I'm going to read this from the employee rights.
Yeah,
Do I hold it
absolutely.
up? I need to read it. Okay. So I've got to put my glasses on because this is tiny. But here we go. The qualifying reasons for leave. 1 is subject to federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation order related to COVID-19. The second reason has been advised by a health care provider to self-quarantine related to COVID-19. 3 is experienced COVID-19 symptoms and is seeking a medical diagnosis. 4 is caring for an individual subject to an order described in 1 as self-quarantine or as described in 2. Number 5 is caring for his or her child whose school or place of care is closed, or child care provider is unable due to COVID-19 related reasons, or is experiencing any other substantially similar condition specified by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
We're not real sure what that one particularly means unless
That's exactly those.
that was sort of a catch-all, it seems like, because anything that they may later use that for to be able to enforce that if they decide, I'm assuming that they deem it later.
But this summarizes it real well, and that they're numbering it so that, and I think they've also referred to item number 1 through 6. So.
Right, and we have those on page 6 of your slides. You can go back and see those. And again, one of the things we failed to mention is that, if your employee's unable to work or unable to telework, and they put that in bold. So, if you've got an employee that's at home and there's any way possible they can work from home, then we may have to address that issue to see, if there's a way that they could be at home, continue to do their job. We'll see how that impacts whether they receive the credit or not. I'm thinking in this case, the government's leaning toward being more generous with this just because of the severity of the situation. And, I think it is them trying to help the employees and the employers keep their people on staff, even though they're having to be at home.
And now we're moving to the tax credit.
Oh, yeah, that's my section.
Andrea's section.
Yeah, the tax credits. So we've talked about what you are required to pay these particular people for these different scenarios. And so, a lot of us were thinking, well, how are we going to pay for this? Or how would you come up with the money to pay for this? And one of the things that they've decided to do is they're going to reimburse you dollar for dollar for the cost of providing leave to your employees. And these credits may be claimed up through December 31st of this year. And the one thing that we're not real sure of yet, and we haven't seen a lot of detail on, is the payroll tax credit for those employers that sponsor group health plans. The credit may be increased by the amount of qualified health plan expenses excluded from an employee's gross income that are allocable to qualified sick leave wages or qualified leave wages in accordance with regulations set forth by the Department of Treasury at a future date. So we're not real sure how this is going to play out if they have, if they get 401k withheld from their pay, if they have health insurance withheld. I'm assuming that the health insurance will continue to be withheld from this pay. Not real sure yet. Again, don't have clarification on it, but as soon as we, I'm sure they're working on trying to get this rolled out for April the 1st. So the sick leave credit, as we mentioned the amounts before, basically what's going to happen is you're going to go and you'll pay these particular employees this way. When you go to make your payroll tax deposit, you'll get a dollar for dollar credit for the amount of wages that you paid for these particular leaves. And in addition to that, you also get a credit for any taxes that you withheld, federal withholding, Social Security, Medicare, plus your employer match of Social Security and Medicare. So we're going to give you an example in a minute that will kind of help explain that. But You know, it's again, you pay the employee based on these particular leave items, and then you get the credit when you go to file the return, your 941s. We haven't seen anything on that yet, as when you go in and do your EFTPS deposit. I haven't seen anything that guides us on that yet, but I'm sure they're working on it. So just pay attention. One thing too, I did want to mention on the child care leave credit, they will get, like she said, you get 2 weeks for sick leave, and then you also get 10 weeks for the additional leave for the child care credit. And this is again where parents are staying home because their kids are in daycare or don't have daycare. The daycares are closed and the schools are closed. So, and then I'll switch over to number 10. It talks about you know, they instead of making the payroll tax deposit, the money that they would have paid these employees that are qualified, they get to keep that money instead. And so if you look on the 11th slide, page 11, our concern was if they're not able to make the payment, suppose they don't have enough cash to do that, they can request an accelerated payment from the IRS, and they can expect that to process in about 2 weeks or less. Again, hate to keep saying that, but that's an area yet where we don't know, like how you request that. I'm sure that's forthcoming, but it would be an expedited payment that they could receive to help with these payments that they're trying to make. I have an example over on slide 12. The first one, let's just say an employer paid $5,000 on sick leave, and otherwise you would normally be required to pay it maybe an $8,000 payroll tax deposit. That includes the taxes that were withheld from the employee, and so the employer can use $5,000 of the $8,000 of taxes to use that to make the qualifying leave payment. And so the employer would only be required under the law to deposit the remaining $3,000 on its next regular deposit date. And that example came straight from the IRS website, I believe. Yep. Next one does too. The employer paid $10,000 in sick leave and was required to deposit $8,000 in taxes. The employer could use the entire $8,000 of taxes in order to make qualified leave payments. The employer files a request for an accelerated credit for the remaining $2,000. So they're working, trying to figure out how to make this, you know, so that it's not a burden on the employer. Again, that's it. That's the synopsis of it. We can't stress enough, you know, how important it is that you pay attention to the Department of Labor's website. I would say that the IRS's website has been very helpful for us. Every day they update it with information regarding the changes. The thing that's coming up, obviously, we're all waiting for is what's going on with the new act that's in the House, I believe, and waiting to be signed. Again, this is not for people that had to close and send their employees home because there wasn't work and there wasn't enough business, right?
Right.
So that's unemployment. That's what you need to be paying attention to first. I would encourage you to do that and see what your requirements are. But, you know, hopefully in the next act, there will be some kind of guidance and as to how to help the employers going forward. And I know that some of our clients have reached out, and I saw it on the site from the chamber where it talks about SBA loans that are available. People are applying for those. I know there's been an issue with the Department of Labor, especially Georgia. I'm not sure about South Carolina, but I know the Georgia Department of Labor has issues crashing, and some people have been up. You said you know someone that's been up at 2:30 in the morning trying to process their DOL request and their unemployment request, and just have not been able to get through. But they say to keep trying. They did publish a good set of Q&A that I found today, actually, that does answer. I mean, there's a lot of questions, and it's just everybody's situation can potentially be different. And so we do recommend that you get in touch with your accountant. If you don't have one, we obviously be glad to help you, and just give us a call, Regina and myself. We're working all the time, trying to stay on top of this and help our clients. And thankfully, with the tax extension to July 15th, we've got a little bit of time to press some of those matters back, but we are still encouraging our clients to bring their tax information in because they may be able to get refunds, and that would be real important with everything that's going on to, have cash coming in. So are there any questions maybe that anybody has?
Our poster that we referred to, that is coming from the U.S. Department of Labor. So if you go to their website, you should be able to pull this in. And this is a requirement that you post this in your workplace. So you really do need to be printing this and posting this so that your employees know their rights. And also it summarizes for you guys to know what's going on too.
Yeah, it's a very good synopsis, and it does spell it out. As employers, we do have several posters that we have to keep posted, and so this is just one more that, and there's even a Q&A on where do I have to put the poster. So they're trying really hard to keep us updated on what's going on. So, any other questions?
I think we've had a couple questions come through. Are those getting fielded over to you okay, Becky?
We've just had one where it was, where did we get the poster from, which Regina just answered, and Andrea. So that's all I've seen.
Okay, and just for our participants, those that are on, there is some supporting documentation via PowerPoint that we'll be sharing with you all in addition to the recording of this webinar. And I thought maybe it would be helpful if we go ahead and include that poster for businesses to print. So that'll just take one step out of having to go on and find it.
Right.
So we're giving it a minute or two for any other questions that may be coming in. I know with this being such a business specific topic, it's difficult to have just a broad question. So as people start having these conversations specifically around their business with their professional advisors, I'm sure that will happen at that time. But as a follow-up to this, again, thanks to everyone for being on and taking time out of your day to learn this important information. We will send the recorded webinar, PowerPoint presentation, and the poster you'll need to post in your place of business. On Tuesday of next week, we hope that you will join us again at 3 o'clock. We'll be having a presentation from our Small Business Development Center, our SBDC, on SBA's disaster loan program and giving information on who would qualify, how it works regarding the application process, the assistance that you are eligible for, and just try to inform you about those options as well. So I am going to go ahead and have us sign off then, assuming there weren't any other questions, and we'll work to get you the follow-up information. Hope everyone's staying safe and well. Thank you.